Don't get me fired, man.
I'm not making any promises, Dennis. Trying to get you ratings, not keep your job.
I'm Arizona Family political editor Dennis Welch.
Dennis, fake news Welch. Try to tell the truth.
And this is the Politics Unplugged podcast.
Dennis, if you have a problem with substance abuse, I am more than willing to talk to you anytime you need.
All right, welcome back to Politics Unplugged, the podcast edition, and a very special edition. It's the last one we do before Election Day, and I am joined by the great Hank Stephenson with the Arizona Agenda. Say hello to the folks there, Hank.
The barely alive Hank Stephenson from the Arizona Agenda. Can't even say it.
No, it's been a long one, man. I'm exhausted. How you holding up?
4 hours of sleep a night does me great.
Yeah, you told me housework's piling up on you, right?
Everything's piling up. Everything's piling up.
Yeah, I love the desperate text messages from various campaigns at 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, I wake up to Donald Trump. I go to bed to Donald Trump. We're like besties at this point. We're just texting back and forth all day.
It's kind of reassuring to know that he's there.
He is. I don't hear a whole lot from Kamala.
Yeah, what's up with that?
I don't know. She doesn't text.
At least give me a you up one, text message every now and then, right?
We should just spend the whole podcast reading off text that we got from politicians.
Oh boy,
fundraising and otherwise. That would actually be a good addition, I feel like.
No, it's nuts. Looking forward to being able to watch a little bit of sports on the weekends without seeing the various ads that's asked me to consider the voting record of candidate A, B, or C. That's too extreme and radical for Arizona.
You're the kind of person who walks away during the commercials of the Super Bowl, aren't you?
I'm not a fan of the whole Super Bowl commercial culture.
Oh man, I'm just watching TV for the advertisements. I need to know what to buy, who to vote for.
I'm a football bro.
Oh, I didn't know that about you.
Yeah,
punk rock and football.
Yeah, you get the flip flops on the weekend with the backward hat. Come on, man. Paint my face.
I would love to see you in face paint. Whole body paint, please. Chest up only.
All right. People are tuning into this, I think. Maybe
not anymore. They just all tuned out.
Maybe not to hear us talk about our weekend activities. They want to hear what Hank thinks about the election, because I know I'm dying to hear what you have to think about the elections. Let's start with Donald Trump, Kamala Harris. Arizona's battleground state. You know this. How do you see the race shaking out here?
I'll tell you who I think will win if you tell me who you voted for.
Oh, sacred. My privacy for voting is sacred, sir.
I don't know. Okay, so before the or after the assassination attempt was all right, hardcore Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Then Kamala came onto the scene, and for a couple of weeks there, I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm feeling like maybe Kamala can pull this off. Mm-hmm. Went back to pretty hardcore Trump vibes the last couple of weeks, and now I'm too on the fence to give a definitive answer right now. I'm just channeling the national mood as best I can.
It's been a roller coaster.
Anxiety.
And I think, there's a lot of people who are extremely confident they think one way or the other, and I think anybody who says that, I have a hard time believing them, because when I look at it, I'm a lot with you. I think this has been a lot of momentum shifts, polling shifts, whatnot. I am interested and have been this past week on the good old-fashioned Go TV, get out the vote efforts, and whether or not Trump's more traditional ground game, Harris's traditional ground game, will pay dividends in a very tight race. What are you hearing?
I got to say, I am a registered Republican, and I am holding on to my early ballot till the very last minute just to make everyone expend their resources to get to me. And nobody is. The Democrats are knocking on my door once every other day, once every third day. I have not had a Republican come to my door yet this election season and ask for my ballots. And I'm a pretty steady Republican voter, but they're not showing up.
And I've heard that from other Republicans as well, and I've also heard from Democrats that Democrat voters that they're showing up to. High advocacy Democrat voters, like, you don't have to worry about them voting. But they're showing up to their door 2, 3, 4 times now.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's going to pay dividends or not.
I have never had this many door knockers. Like I get left off of most of the lists, but this year it has been just constant knocking on my door. I left my keys in my door the other day, and some door knockers came over, and they're like, "You're not on our list, but your keys are in your door, you idiot." And so I told them I would vote against Prop 137 or whatever they were out there campaigning against. I was like, "You got me," and they were so stoked. They're like, "Registered Republican, we got him.
We got him. Check him off the list." No, I mean, I just you read these stories, here in Arizona as well. Pennsylvania, there's a story there about the ground game and the disparity between Trump and Harris, and that was like really pronounced, I believe, in Pennsylvania. Harris had 260 some offices, 2,500 paid staff. That doesn't include volunteers. And like Trump spokesman told CBS, I think it was a CBS story that said, we got about a dozen offices.
Wow.
And I'm just wondering, I know that the Trump campaign, Republicans have outsourced a lot of stuff to Turning Point USA and to Elon Musk and whatnot. What wins out? What have you heard? Have you heard anything about this?
Did you hear that episode of The Daily, the New York Times podcast the other day where they were hanging out? That was a great episode.
Great.
Yeah, that was really
They were at
interesting.
Maricopa County.
Kind of talking about how their get out the vote efforts are split between get out the vote and election integrity efforts, and just like the drain on get out the vote resources that becomes the kind of people that it attracts, that are just, the kind of people who volunteered at the Cyber Ninjas audits are, the people that they were talking to. And they can't help but talk about, your vote, the election's going to be rigged, and please vote. And that's a tough message to be selling people, is like, it may not count, but we've got to swamp the vote.
Swamp the fraud, remember?
But, I mean, if you look at early ballot returns, Republicans are up. It's about even percentage-wise, but in terms of raw numbers, Republicans are certainly leading once again. So we've unpoisoned that well against voting early and voting by mail. So who knows? Who knows? And also, I do think that the hardcore Trump base, they don't need that encouragement to go out and vote. I think that's part of the calculation. It's like the people who are with us, So I don't know. We only got a couple more days left. Yeah. Let's not make any bold predictions that can be remembered in time to be proven wrong.
Oh, Colin and I are notorious for that. You should see you should go back into our sports predictions. They are legion.
Yeah?
They're so wrong.
How are your political predictions?
Not good.
No?
No, typically not good.
You want to take an easy one? U.S. Senate race? How's that going to turn out?
Nice transition, sir.
Yeah, I could host this podcast.
Prop 139. How's that going to turn out? Look, my record on predictions is top rated. Let's transition to that Senate race. You believe the polling? And the polling shows that Ruben Gallego is up bigly.
I don't believe any one poll, but I do believe that over time you get a sense of how things are from polling, and the polling has been consistent throughout that race. Other than that one, what was it, Data Orbital poll that they put out recently. Meh. That's my reaction to that. 100 polls tell you one thing, another tells you another.
And let's look at it like a best case shenario with that poll was outlier.
Yeah. Yes, best case scenario. That's a good way to phrase that.
No, what has been different from you watching this? I've seen you out at a couple of her press conferences and whatnot. What's been different about her? I'd like to get your take on this because I sense just a different vibe.
I think she's made a half-hearted attempt at reforming her image, but it has always been a half-hearted attempt. Like the base level Carrie Lake is the base level Carrie Lake, and she comes out pretty quickly when challenged. Yeah. So we've seen the mama bear Carrie Lake that quickly pivots to the election fraud Carrie Lake. We've seen a couple of different versions of Carrie Lake. But right behind those versions is always the one we met 2 years ago, and that has not changed. She is just as angry, bitter of a person as she was 2 years ago, probably more so. And I think people pick up on that. It is just a vibe of, I don't like her. She's not as charming as she thinks she is. She's certainly not as charming as Donald Trump is. very few people can pull off a Donald Trump act, and Kari Lake has been trying really, really hard.
Yeah, and it's funny because you do see her make that effort to reform, and then you read an article where she says the complete opposite. And to me, it almost feels like she's going to say and do whatever she can to win over the people in that room at that moment.
Yep.
That's like her baseline.
Yep.
And I wondered too if there was just a lack of political imagination. Like, what's new? Everything we're seeing this time around is the same that we saw 2 years ago. Like, you're attacking the media, which, by the way, I don't understand. Like, fine, attack us. I don't understand how that qualifies you for an office, but cool. You can go ahead and attack us. And by the way, I'm the first to admit, like, we deserve a lot of criticism in the media.
Especially you.
Yeah, especially me. especially the, you too, the agenda there.
Hey, she did threaten to sue us. That's got to count for something.
So she figured out who the agenda is, remember?
Yeah. Briefly.
Because at first it's like, who are you? I've never heard of you. Like, oh.
Then she retweeted us, and then we made a deep fake of her, and now we're on her radar. So,
She knows now. Good job.
I was just thinking, I was running a discussion thread today, and I was asking, like, anyone know where Kari Lake's election night party is? I haven't heard anything about that. And somebody was like, you should, make an AI agent of her to have your own election party. And I was like, oh boy, wait a minute. We're going to get a concession out of Kari Lake this year, one way or another. I tell you what,
breaking
put that
news
on our radar.
Breaking news. We are here at the
Kari
conception.
Lake loses this race, I will create a deep fake of her to concede.
Yeah, and I don't think that helped her at all, that she was running for this office while she still
is governor.
It's still governor.
Yeah.
I mean
it's hard.
Jokes aside, I mean, it was weird.
Yeah. I think I've even said this on this podcast before, but my grandmother is my bellwether of like Republican voters. She has voted against every Republican in the state who has ever lost. She's voting against Kari Lake. And she was like, she's lost too many times. And I didn't even bother to be like, it was just the once, Grandma, but she keeps denying it so many times that you feel like it's been 100 losses.
Or is she counting the court cases?
Maybe that's what it was.
I think it's going to end up being a bit closer, quite a bit closer than some of the polls suggested.
Yeah, I would be really
not gonna be a
surprised if
double-digit.
it were. Yeah, exactly.
I think
Double-digit blowout. But, I would also be surprised if it were closer than 2 points at the end of the day, you know? I think the presidential race will be down to the ballots. I don't think we'll have to wait until 2 weeks from Election Day to call the U.S. Senate race.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit of congressional races. We've got obviously 1/6 that's been watched all year. But we got a new one now.
A
new one now in the
that's
second.
Another polling outlier situation, I think.
Yeah, like art imitating life or life imitating art.
Right.
It's like we didn't hear anything about this race, and then like one poll comes out, shows them even, and then it's just a tsunami of ads.
Have you seen a lot of ads?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
I haven't caught too many of them.
And this is Eli Crane, the incumbent versus Jonathan Naz, the former president of the Navajo Nation.
Yeah. Yep. Up there in northeastern Arizona.
Yeah. I just wonder about that. And I was like, I still think Eli's pretty safe, but
well, that was allegedly a competitive district, but I think what we've seen since it's been redrawn is just like it didn't act super competitive. So a lot of people dropped that off their map. On paper, maybe it's within reach.
Okay.
I don't know. Incumbent, a lot of money, I have a hard time seeing that being super competitive, but that would be exciting. That may be our dark
November
horse
surprise.
race. Yeah.
The November surprise. What about Schweiker? Do you think he keeps it on his seat? I mean, he's over in the fighting 1st congressional district for Arizona.
I don't know. To me, that will depend on like if Donald Trump polls out Arizona pretty significantly, I would say, Schweikert's probably a lock. Otherwise, like 50-50. I would be inclined to like give Schweikert the odds just because guy's been around a long time. He campaigns hard. He hasn't been spending all of his money on lawyers to fight his ethics charge this time, so that's got to help.
He's wily, crafty.
He is. I mean, a lot of people have tried to take him down over the years.
Yes, man.
He's
He is
still around.
Tough tough campaigner, man. Like, he's been
How
on
many
the,
people put up their own campaign signs out there with rebar and a sledgehammer,
It sounds like work.
That does sound like work.
No,
More work than you're used to seeing from a congressperson.
Yeah, we're a journalist. I wouldn't want to do it. Ugh, no, because again, it's like Lucy. It's like to Democrats, it's Lucy with the football. Mm-hmm. This is like every year, every 2 years. Oh, we can take them out. No, it's not going to happen. But Siscomani, can he hold off down there? Because that's a true swing district. That flips all the time.
Yeah, that was the old Gabby Giffords district and went back and forth and back and forth and back. I remember counting it up recently. Now I forgot what it was, but it was like, if not every 2 years, by every 4 years, that seat was flipping for the last decade plus.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think if we're going to see an incumbent unseated, my money would be on Juan Siscomani at this point. That's the one I'd feel most comfortable saying.
And then Kristen Engel could have fun holding that on for 2 to 4 years before that district changes its mood again. Such a fickle district.
Martha McSally comeback?
Ooh,
I don't know. Why not?
I saw her resurface.
Martha
somewhere.
3.0 on the internet.
That's right.
She's doing like public speaking, motivational stuff. It's actually a much more fun Martha. 3.0 is my favorite Martha.
I hope she's enjoying her best life, man.
It seems like she is.
You know, she lost that race and feelings were hurt, and like Martha's got a really extraordinary story, which I was always puzzled by in that last race, or the last couple of races, why she wasn't doing more to tell that story. I know with the Kyrsten Sinema thing, she came out immediately attacking Sinema with the pink dress and all that stuff. So why don't you tell your story first? Because it's an amazing story. The first female combat pilot in U.S. history. That's admirable.
Yeah, she's kind of a badass.
Yeah. So and I know
I would go to her motivational speeches.
I might if invited. I'll go with you.
Should we buy some tickets?
Yeah, let's do it.
We should do a podcast on that one. That sounds fun.
Write some first person stories, but no, she's I've had I had off the record beers with her once.
Oh, really?
Before the election, and yeah, she can throw back a brewski.
That does not surprise me in the least.
No,
she seems like she might be fun to drink with. Was she fun to drink with?
Yes,
really.
Yes, very much.
Cool.
Very much.
We should invite her on.
Yeah, let's get her on.
Is she not one of your political panelists occasionally?
But
get her in the rotation.
We have to get her here with Boomer.
Oh yeah,
that
Boomer,
dog is awesome.
He's the real star of the show.
Anyway, any thoughts? Let's wrap up with the legislature. I know the Guardian. You guys have been paying a lot of close attention to those legislative races.
The Guardian. Wow.
Freudian slip.
What a throwback.
Freudian slip. The agenda. The agenda. My apologies. Freudian slip. But you guys have been paying close attention to those races. Been doing a great job with that.
Thanks. That's all Nicole.
She has been doing a fantastic job with that. Where do you see this going? This is the stuff I think is more important. Presidential race get all the attention. Like these are the offices that determine these laws that is going to affect you, your lives, whatnot.
Especially with a Democratic governor. In the past years, it's been Democrats flip the legislature, and unless you have the governorship, as we've seen, it doesn't get you a whole lot. Mm-hmm. Can they flip it?
Can the Democrats flip the legislature? And does Katie Hobbs really want to flip the legislature?
That's an interest. The second question is far more interesting. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Let's be bold. I'll say the Democrats tie a chamber, and what the heck? Let's go with flip a chamber too.
Oh,
just barely margins.
Oh.
Maybe the Senate
I think
at
best they come up, they tie the Senate, and Republicans pick up seats in the House.
Yeah, I could see that scenario too.
So, yeah.
Shall we put some money on it?
No, I think that's illegal.
They legalized
betting,
the
but not political betting.
Market.
Didn't Howie Fisher get in trouble one time?
I don't know that story, but I do not doubt it one bit. If not, you should just make it up and tell us right now.
Do we have phone lines in the podcast room? Let's call up Howie right now.
He's going to answer, too.
So yeah, I kind of think tie Senate, maybe the Republicans pick up some seats over in the House.
It would be really fun to see a tied chamber or two.
And let's end with that more interesting question.
Does Katie Hobbs really want to flip the
And
legislature?
maybe the better way to ask that is, does Katie Hobbs really benefit from a Democrat-controlled legislature or chamber?
I could make the argument either way. I think, the joy of not controlling the legislature is nothing gets done, and you get to campaign on the fact that nothing gets done, and if we had control, we would X, Y, and Z, and don't you want X, Y, and Z? And that, helps her get another 4 years in the governor's office, which I think is a tall order for her right now. On the other hand, flipping the legislature would give her a short window to get some things done and go back to the base and say, I did X, Y, and Z. Yeah, it's a tough position.
I'll take the more strident positions. I think it benefits her to have a Republican-controlled legislature because it's easier, because she's getting a lot of love for the veto queen stuff. And to go out there and be like, look at all the things that didn't happen is probably better for her, because there are divisions with the Democratic caucuses in the legislature that aren't as pronounced and not as written, not as much attention is given to, because they're not in power. But if they were in power, you'd see them more pronounced. And would Katie Hobbs have to veto some of the more progressive measures that would come up to her office? And I'd say she probably would, and that might not make her very popular with her own base.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same position that Ducey was in for so many years, is trying to keep his party from sending him crazy junk that he'd have to veto, and there was just kind of a standing rule that, you stopped things before they got to veto points. And I don't know that
and that's a good, because we learned from the Tamale bill. Yeah, initially,
that's a good example.
The Hobbs folks were not good at playing the legislative game down there. It's like, because that bill should never have gotten to her desk if she was going to veto it. So hopefully they learned from that. But she would be in a different situation. But the Ducey example is interesting because he had to do a lot of that. He had the Republican chamber, and they were splitting. They had the far right wanting to push their agenda. And if Katie Hobbs gets a chamber or two, or both chambers of the legislature, she'd have to play that same game. And whether she would be as good at it as Ducey or not, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think she has that level of control over the legislature that, Ducey's was tentative, but there was some level of control there. And I just feel like, Hobbs has kind of burned some of her Democratic colleagues in the budgeting process. They've been annoyed that they weren't, fully involved in that, and it was her negotiating with Republican leadership. I don't feel like there's been a whole lot of communication between the two sides, certainly not in her first year as governor. So, yeah, she's spending a lot of money, though. She at least on paper, definitely wants the legislature to flip. And in some ways, that would make her job a lot more, I don't know, rewarding.
Yeah, well,
who wants to sit up there and just veto things all day?
Well, it depends. If you just like being governor, pretty decent. But, Hobbs did show up on stage with Harris the other day. That was almost news.
Right? It's been weird that she has been nowhere to be seen with all these politicians coming into Arizona to stump. Katie Hobbs hasn't been there. She's been going down to southern Arizona, help some legislative candidates, things like that. But I've had a lot of people ask, why is Hobbs not on the stage here? And I actually made a joke about it in the newsletter, and then heard from somebody not too long after, this was not the Harris campaign who is leaving Hobbs out in the dark. So I have no idea what's going on there, but mysteries to be solved.
I mean, there's always the chatter about maybe she just doesn't want to be seen with Harris. And if that's the case, you are way outthinking the room on this one, because if Harris is elected in 2 years, the Republican opponent is going to tie her to that administration, whether she likes it or not.
Yeah, I don't get the logic of that. That's why that doesn't really make sense to me. It's What do you lose by showing up? There's nothing that's going to come out of that is going to hurt. There's going to be the side by side. Harris's puppet Katie Hobbs. No matter what she does, they could never be in public together, and it's just they'll just take 2 photos, put them together in 2 years.
Do you think Harris might have wanted a more charismatic Democratic governor in Arizona?
You sound like Marco Lopez. 3 people are going to get that joke, but check out his Twitter. It's wild. It's all AI too.
Oh, boy. Anything else we should know before we let you go?
You tell me, Dennis. You tell me.
You tell me, man. You're the guy with the inside information, man.
I'm just trying to survive another couple of days and then take a nice long December vacation.
What do you mean, December vacation? That's when pre-filing starts, man.
Yeah, that's fine. Let him pre-file. John Kavanaugh can have his weeks.
I will gotta say, man, I didn't have it on the agenda, man. But to transition real quick to talk about Katie Hobbs and her legislative agenda was so refreshing for me because I'm just so tired of talking about polling and getting asked who's gonna win. I don't freaking know. I'm ready to take a break after this election.
The voters are going to win. The voters are going to win.
They always win.
And if they don't, we'll just overturn the vote.
Swamp the vote. I guess with that, we'll bid you adieu.
Adios.
All right. Thanks a lot, man. And welcome back for the second half of Politics Unplugged, your podcast edition. As always, Colin Stan, the producer extraordinaire. Thanks
Always
for joining us, man.
Yeah, of course.
Let's start with the tradition here. Political story of the week.
I did this last week, but I'm going to do it again. The bizarre coverage from some of the mainstream national news services and outlets.
Oh, yeah. Because last week we talked about Arnold Palmer.
Yeah, and the New York Times describing that as Donald Trump telling golf stories, which is not what he did.
No,
it's not what he did. This time, same reporter, although he blamed his editors last time, and he might be doing it this time. Yeah. As we taped this on Friday last night, Trump was in town with Tucker Carlson. Mm-hmm. And said that he would like to see Liz Cheney face a firing squad. Like to see her face 9 people, see how she does with 9 people pointing barrels of a gun at her face. Mm-hmm. Which the New York Times described as he slammed a Republican rival. Mm. Harsh words for a Republican rival.
Doesn't exactly tell the story.
It doesn't really tell the story. When Matt Drudge runs the headline that he called for her execution, and the New York Times is doing the harsh words for a rival at a fiery appearance with Tucker. Mm-hmm. It seems like there's something fundamentally wrong with your coverage.
Yeah. Fox and Friends took issue with the Drudge report.
Sure they did.
They called it an irresponsible a headline. Look, Trump says a lot of things that are not traditional or may not be acceptable part of political discourse.
In the history of American discourse, we tend to discourage people from suggesting people who say mean things about them should be put on a firing line.
Yeah, and it should be covered.
Yeah.
When he came to Phoenix a week or so ago, he was at Mullet Arena. He basically laid out the same grievances he always does. Talks about immigration. He talked about a lot about immigration and whatnot. And then he said this thing where, he called the U.S. the garbage can of the world. It's become the garbage can of the world, meaning that this is where all the immigrants are dropped off here, and we're. And to me, that was kind of the news of the event, right? Because what's new, well, this is kind of a new insult, I suppose. Yeah. And we covered that. I mean, he says these things, and I don't understand why people get upset, if you just report it straight.
Yeah.
You know?
That's what the man said.
It's what the man said. You know, you don't have to say, and you don't have to say like Drudge. You don't have to say like, oh, well, he called for the execution. You could put his words in quotes.
Yes. He said he wanted to see her facing 9 people pointing guns at her face.
That's more than criticizing a critic.
Yeah.
That is a lot more than that.
Yes.
That is not acceptable.
Yes.
And for the history of the country, it has not been acceptable political discourse, at least in our lifetime.
No.
I mean, can you go back to earlier campaigns with the founders? I don't probably. You could find all sorts of weird stuff back there. But in the modern culture, TV, and since politics went TV in 1960, there's nothing even equivalent to that I can remember, at least off the top of my head.
No.
For a mainstream, from the person who has a coin flip chance of returning to the White House.
Yeah. We live in remarkable times. I saw people complaining online when it was taken out of context. What is the context for that? What is the context for I'd like to see her facing 9 people pointing guns at her face?
You know what's funny? Like most of the claims from people that say something's taken out of context, the irony is that those claims provide no context.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, if it's taken out of context, explain.
It's sort of the catch-all defense.
Yeah, well, it's taken out of context.
Yeah. No, the context was he was sitting on a stage complaining about someone who said mean things about him.
And is supporting his rival.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. When someone says he wants to send the military after people who don't agree with him,
I mean,
that's sort of the context.
Yeah, he just says he's a different candidate. He says different things. Like report it straight. You don't have to. It's on the news. I mean, let the editorials and let the talking heads on television, make arguments for or against or whatever he says, but just report straight.
Yeah.
And if you get mad at that, like ask yourself why you're getting mad if we're just reporting what he said.
Yeah. Yeah, he said it.
I mean, bottom line is he's where he's at because he says these things. Because there's a big percentage of voters that just get a kick out of this guy.
Yeah.
They think, he's joking. Other people don't. But it's like, joking about someone facing a firing squad or however we put it, like the 9 barrels or whatever.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yep. It is.
Well, moving on from that.
Yeah. So after trashing the New York Times, do we move on to the Washington Post?
Yes, let's move on to the Washington Post.
And also the LA Times. Yeah. Let's not leave them entirely out of it.
All right. Bad week for the Post.
Yeah. There is certainly a strong argument to be made that newspapers should not be involved in endorsing candidates.
Yeah. Because it doesn't freaking matter anymore.
It really does not. And the decision comes from the editorial board, not from the staff. It's not the reporters' decision. It's not like they put a vote to the reporters to see who they're going to be who they think they should support.
No.
So a lot of people end up looking like they're taking a side when they have absolutely nothing to do with the endorsement. So having said that, it wasn't on any ethical grounds that the Washington Post and the LA Times both announced they weren't going to do an endorsement. It was on the grounds of they're owned by billionaires who wouldn't let the paper do an endorsement because they knew who they're going to endorse. And in the case of the Washington Post, Trump had already threatened Jeff Bezos, and then Bezos had a meeting with Trump and then announced there would be no endorsement.
Wow. Yeah. They paid a price.
They did.
They lost a catastrophic number of digital subscribers for this decision.
In 1 week, the Washington Post says it lost 250,000 subscribers.
A number that was published
by the
Washington Post.
Yes. The sourcing on that is the Washington Post.
Yeah.
I was looking at. We were wondering just how big the numbers are. That's 10% of their subscription base.
Yeah.
They lost in 1 week. They lost 10% of their subscription base because Bezos decided he wouldn't let them endorse anyone after having a meeting, I believe, the day before.
That's readers sending a clear message.
It's a very clear message.
Yeah.
To put the 250,000 subscribers in some context, there are only 7 papers in the U.S. with a circulation of 250,000 or greater.
And that's paper or digital?
That's digital. That's anything.
Okay.
That's anything. In terms of actual print subscriptions, 2. There are 2 newspapers in the U.S. who have print circulation of greater than $250,000.
Wow.
Or 250,000.
Wall Street Journal, New York Times, I would assume.
Yes. New York Times is just under 300. These numbers are from last year, so they're in the ballpark. For print, the New York Times is just shy of 300,000. The Wall Street Journal is at more than 600,000. But 7, you want to guess the 7 papers that have circulation of all kinds, digital and print, presumably.
So at New York Times,
greater than 250.
New York Times is
Number 1.
Wall Street Journal.
Number 2.
USA Today.
Number 4.
Washington Post there.
Number 3. So you got 3 more.
LA Times.
Yes. Number 5.
Chicago Tribune.
Number 6.
What would be number 7? What would be number 7?
They have a circulation of 315,000 subscribers. Their print is 60,000.
Oh, New York Post?
No, they've only got 135,000, which, to be fair, puts them 9th.
Wow.
It's not like
Yeah.
But no.
Who would that?
Boston Globe.
The Boston Globe.
Yeah.
The old Boston Globe.
Yes. So the decision by Bezos cost the Washington Post almost the Boston Globe's entire subscription base.
Wow.
And
well, I was talking with Hank about this before he came on, and he's like, man, if I only had 250,000 readers to lose.
there is that. Yeah. Yeah. And the 2 reactions are, well, good. Bezos can pay for his cowardice.
And
then bad because it's not great to have a newspaper that has been a leading light in journalism for decades.
Well, and our fellow journalists over there.
Yes.
And the Washington Post has done some fantastic and some great journalism.
Yes.
And they could end up paying the price. I mean, that's a significant hit.
Oh, it's a massive hit.
And from if anybody, if you lost that kind of subscription base in a year, there would be cutbacks.
Yes.
At a newspaper.
Yeah.
They lost that in a week.
In a week. Yes.
Now, can they start recovering some of that? I don't know.
I don't know.
But man, people are pissed about that.
Yeah.
Oof.
People don't like Jeff Bezos too.
No,
generally speaking.
No, nor should anybody. I mean, congratulations for being extremely successful.
Yeah.
Like, really. But, now he's so successful, people think that he is distorting what should be a free market.
Yeah.
There's lots of criticisms out there, and he's extremely powerful, extremely rich.
Yeah.
At the turn of the 19th, 20th century, if you needed to sell any goods or products, you had to put it on a train, and there was a trust, a small group of train owners that could charge whatever the hell they wanted for things.
Yeah.
And they were broken up by Teddy Roosevelt, right? The trust buster, right? Well, a lot of people will now look at the 21st century and say the train's been replaced by the internet.
Yeah.
And that what Bezos is doing is exactly what the train barons were doing back in the day. And there's arguments that I don't know enough about any of this, that Amazon or something should be maybe busted up. Because, it's weird how you hear stories over and over, like there'll be a product that gets popular selling on Amazon, and then all of a sudden Amazon creates its own version of that product, and then your product doesn't show up in searches.
Yeah.
We've seen plenty of those stories, and that's a lot of power to have.
It is. From a guy who once was asked why he was creating a space program, why he was building rockets to launch rockets into space.
Because he can.
No, because he couldn't come up with anything else to spend his money on. Because he had so much money, he didn't know what to spend it on. So he decided, well, let's blast rockets into space. Can we refer to Bill Gates and what he's done with his money? Because I think that's a bit more of a societal plus than than Bezos.
Bill
with
and
his
Melinda Gates
fucking
Foundation.
rockets. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh boy, what a week, man!
Yep.
What a week.
I'm so glad this is our last pod before the election.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Final week, man.
Yeah.
Before final pod, any main takeaways you want to share? Any predictions? Any thoughts? Any?
No, the process has become soul crushing and depressing, and I can't believe this is where our country is.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and the like, you're watching TV, and then it comes to a commercial break, and there's just like an existential dread.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you know you're about to get hit with 3 minutes of like the shittiest stuff you've ever seen.
I know. I'm surprised, like, this would be such a that this isn't a very low turnout election, because usually the rule of thumb used to be if there was really negative campaigns drives down turnout. So the rules aren't the same, and maybe this is my get off the lawn moment. Maybe it's because I've been doing this too long, but I've been covering campaigns for a long time, and this used to be a lot of fun covering campaigns.
Yeah, it's
just been slightly kind of miserable.
Oh, it's no fun at all.
Because everybody is just, not everybody, but there's a lot of folks out there that just, they're not dealing with you honestly. You get really personal criticisms. You go out to certain events and people are yelling at you. It has changed very differently.
Yeah.
It's been, this election, I think even more so than 2020 and 16, it's just been a lot more of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we've got a candidate who's essentially running against the media for much of it, and I don't think it's going to work for her, and I don't get it. I realize they've trained one side to hate the media, but you're not running against the media. You're not.
Well, I mean, there was some reporter early on. I hate to mention a name. It's a well-known name, but there's a print reporter. I'd known Trump for a while, and when he was first running, they asked him, like, why do you do this? And he said he didn't want people to believe the media when they wrote bad things about him.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of where it kind of started. At least, I remember reading about that. And man, it's been effective.
It has. Yeah, I don't negative campaigns may drive down turnout. I don't either. Trump's existence on the ballot will drive up turnout.
Yeah,
I think.
It just does.
Either you love the guy or you absolutely hate the guy.
Yeah.
And either way, you're going to vote.
Yeah. So good luck out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So Cards and Bears, who you got?
I'm going Cards.
Going Cards? I'll hesitantly go Cards, but
what should be listed as a away road game? They're playing in Glendale.
Yeah. Yeah. It will be a enthusiastic reaction for the Bears, I would assume.
Yes. There will be a lot of Bears fans.
It used to, when I used to go to the Coyotes in the early years of the Coyotes,
yeah.
It was a pretty good Coyote crowd, unless you were playing the Blackhawks or the Red Wings or like the Rangers, and then it was a Blackhawks home game, and this will be the same thing.
And then let me ask you before we get out of here. Suns.
Yeah.
You excited about it? Because I was watching that Clipper game the other night, and again they were on the road again in L.A.
Yeah,
which that was great.
Yeah,
it feels like we've only played L.A. teams to start start the year. But they fell behind the first half. They looked atrocious, and then just came storming back in the second half. And like after watching the first 4 or 5 games of the season, it just feels like maybe this was the team we expected last year.
Yeah. I mean, the presence of a point guard makes all the difference in the world. That's a big help. They appear much better. I would prefer if we could have fewer 20-point swings.
100%.
But at the same time, that's where the league has gone. I mean, the 20-point lead means nothing now, which is weird, and I think probably an outgrowth of the horrid importance of the three-pointer at this point.
Well, I mean, yeah, statistically, it just makes sense.
It does. I mean, as a hardcore basketball guy, I have NBA League Pass. I'm frequently watching 2 or 3 games a night, just because I'm a sicko in that regard.
Yeah.
And the game is just not as good when it's just a 3-point shooting derby.
Yeah.
I heard a great stat the other day, which was back when the Warriors sort of revolutionized the game with their crazy dependence on the 3-point shot in like 2014. I think they were averaging like 27 3-pointers a game, which was unheard of and crazy. And last year, the Celtics averaged 51.
Yeah.
And if you average 27, like
wasn't there a game the Celtics recently put up 60, 63 or something?
Yeah, they were going for the record for made shots, and so they just bricked everything in the fourth, and they didn't get the record.
No.
And the dependence on the three is just, it's really made the game worse. And to fix it would be expensive, so I don't know if they're going to do it. Because about the only good way to fix it is to make the floor bigger and move the line back. But if you make the floor bigger, you lose a line at least of good seats. And I don't see them doing that.
Well, what if you eliminated the corner three?
That's the other option, and I'd be totally fine with that.
You eliminate
move it out, eliminate the corner three.
Yeah.
But you need to do something to encourage the fast break where the guy pulls up and takes a three. Just, I hate it every single time. I hate it.
Yeah.
The death of the mid-range game. It makes the game so much less interesting. And I'm guessing that is a lot of what's leading to the massive point swings, because you can make it up more quickly with a three, and you can also fall behind by 20 much quicker if all you're doing is shooting threes and they're not falling.
Yeah, I mean, you get hot. You got a 20-point lead. You get hot, you drain, 3-4 threes, single-digit ball game again.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Because it used to be like basketball, particularly college basketball, 20-point leads were insurmountable.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And now it's, but it'll take you the better part of a quarter, but you'll knock it out.
Yeah, well, but the one thing was it was hard to build a 20-point lead.
Yeah.
But back then, now it's easy to build a 20-point lead, and it's easy to lose it.
Yeah. Suns look pretty good. Lakers look really good, which is interesting to me. But yeah, I grew up a Lakers fan. I'm not a big fan now.
No, I just entire like LA sport world. You can just go eat it. It's like the Dodgers are all excited about like winning the World Series. Like, oh, congratulations! You went out with the highest payroll and bought like all these great players, and you finally won a legitimate World Series. Congratulations! Let's put it on the fridge, little Dodgers.
See, and I'm an Angels fan. I'm not a Dodgers fan, but I had to root for the Dodgers because I'm sure as hell not rooting for the Yankees. Saw a funny tweet this week. And it was pointing out how dated Moneyball is, the book, which became the big hit movie. And it's like people put it on their best sports movies of all time list. So if you look back at Moneyball, it's about how the Oakland A's were a big success, even though they didn't have money, by being smarter about how they built the team. Oakland A's are moving to Sacramento and maybe someday to Vegas because they failed in Oakland. The two top spending teams in Major League Baseball just faced each other in the World Series. And the guy who was the brains of the operation in the book and movie, Paul DePodesta, is responsible for maybe the worst trade in NFL history. He's now the chief advisor, or I forget his exact role, but he's like he's the main brains behind the Cleveland Browns.
Ooh.
Paul DePodesta is the guy responsible for the trade for Deshaun Watson and his contract.
Ooh.
So that's the sequel to Moneyball. Would be a fun one. Yeah.
Yeah, that you know what? Nobody is feeling sorry for the Browns on that one.
No.
Zero.
Nope.
And if you do, you don't know the story.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like going through the whole story on this podcast.
No.
Just say Google it.
Yeah, they can wear this one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they can. Yeah, because not a class individual off the field.
No. No, and they signed him to a guaranteed deal of I think $230 million.
I was going to say like $250 million
in a sport where contracts are not guaranteed. His is
100%.
Great call.
All right, man. That's it for this week. I guess next time we convene, we'll be going over.
Yeah.
What's left to count?
Yeah, I know. We may know who's won some
We
races.
may know. I can say with with confidence that we will know the winners some races.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the propositions will probably be done. Good chance the Senate race is done, I think. Based if you're going off the polling,
Yeah.
who I know you and the other our guests keep insisting, oh, it's going to be a lot closer than the polls show. Well, the polls keep showing that number.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
We'll see.
I don't know if it's going to be that close.
Okay.
But we'll see.
Okay. We're not betting because, again, you can get in trouble for that, I think.
You can. Yeah.
Although that could be stoner law. I don't know. Remember we all had that stoner friend in high school who just like, if they say that and they don't, that's entrapment. Like, I really don't know.
I'm not sure it works that way. No,
sure
man,
that
they've got to
works.
give you water at the restaurant. It's the law.
It's the law, man. Like
You're a stoner lawyer.
Well, yeah, I'm a stoner. Yeah, a stoner. But I think
Spicoli
I think you
Esquire.
can get in trouble if you actually make a real bet on politics and political stuff. I think it's against the law. It's probably why there are no political betting markets that are legal in the United States. And by the
Yeah.
way, I'll just leave you with this: if you are watching the political betting markets that are overseas and trying to glean any information off that, you're a fool.
You are a fool. Yes. It's crypto bros with 3 or 4 people controlling it. Don't waste your time.
And with that, we'll leave it to you. Have fun voting. If you haven't voted, get out there, drop off your ballot early so you don't gum up the works like I do every year.
Yeah. I'm voted. I'm done.
I know you.
It's counted. I'm good. I'm a good citizen.
We'll see you, everyone.
See you next week.
Thanks for listening. You can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, the Google Store, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. See you next time.